Okay. How do you see, like with collection development and basically like book selection, do you see the of trying to promote certain websites or trying to help people navigate the web better? So, I mean, I'm just remember how to. I mean, you have that whole realm of things. How do we help the patrons navigate?
It's difficult, and we have not done selection of websites per se. We're talking about doing it. We're trying to figure out how we could do that, because I do think that there's information that customers need every day, that if we could just point at this part of a government website, on getting your passport or whatever, that we could really help our users. Part of it is time, part of it is determining how do you determine, because for every website there's another website, particularly if you're using commercial websites. Why are you picking my website instead of my website? I do the same thing. So you've got to have some criteria, just like you do with books. And then you have to have somebody do the selection. And you're talking to Phoenix Public Library, where we do little selection of our new materials now. We actually work very closely with our vendors, with the professional libraries on our vendor side, to select our materials for us. And we have a procedure in place where we guide them if we think they're going a little off course. But we're not sitting down and saying, I want this book, this book, this book, this book. I'm paying attention to what patrons ask for, and I'm saying, yeah, I want this book, this book, this book. And that's it. I mean, most libraries that I talk to, they have, if they're not doing decentralized selection, which we gave up a long time ago, where people in the branches choose what they want in their branches. To me, that's a little old-fashioned, particularly once you get into floating. I mean, we've basically been floating, in terms of holds going out and around, and everybody's books belonging to everybody else in the system. The only thing we haven't been doing is let them stick where they fall. Okay, so now my worry is, we have to make sure that we are still picking up materials from the smaller vendors, the ones who put out stuff that the major vendors don't, because the major vendors are money-making machines for bigger corporations often. So if you want to get good gay, lesbian, if you want to get even good building, good arts and crafts materials, sometimes you have to go to these smaller publishers. You need to know who they are. You need to purchase from them. Now, our vendors do that for us if we, tell them and we work with them. But if we want to go beyond just that basic selection, which we do, then, and we often do it based on our patrons, our customers' requests, then we make those selections. We reserve money to do that. But that's about all the time we have to select. A lot of our time and effort has to go into how do we deselect, which is a completely, oh my goodness, when people say the professional thing is selection, I beg your pardon. As far as I'm concerned, the professional thing is how do you manage your collection? Do you know what's being used? Can you describe how it's being used? How do you know? How do you prove it that this is what's happening? And then can you say, well, what publishers do we need? What authors do we need? What formats do we need? And then you have to say, okay, and how long do I need them? Because I'm going to have to deselect. Our buildings are not getting any bigger. If anything, our collections sizes are shrinking because we're needing spaces in our buildings for computers, for Wi-Fi, for baby telling story areas, for all kinds of other activities other than just circulating materials. So we have to be so focused and so knowledgeable and so with it, and we have to get rid of things that aren't moving as well as they were moving in the past, and to make room for the things that are coming in. So the managing of a collection and knowing what's going on in my facility, to me, is the number one thing that professionals need to be able to do in terms of collection today. And it's an art. It's a true art. And a large part of my job is getting out there and showing them how it can be done. For instance, I'll give you a for instance. We just switched over to a new online system. And it brought over all of our circulations historically. You know, it says, okay, this item has circulated 10 times. What it didn't bring over is when was the last time it circulated. When did it come into the collection? You don't know that. Often you have to look at the book and see a date. I mean, talk about old-fashioned, but there you are. A date stamped on that front page or on the top of the book that says this is when that book came into the collection. So if the book came into the collection 10 years ago and it has 10 circulations, that basically sucks. And there's probably a real good chance it hasn't moved in a long time. But we don't know that now because of our new system. Maybe I'm lying. Maybe it does tell you the last time it went. But, you know, it takes, all of a sudden our whole reports function that we had really nailed with our last system is gone. So now how do you decide what you're going to get rid of? And you have to be a little creative about that. So I'm going out and showing the staff, okay, how do you get creative about what you're getting rid of? If you have this many cookbooks, and how do you know which ones to get rid of? How do you know which ones to keep? So that's what I'm working with staff with right now.
So how do you see collection development? We've talked a little bit about collection development in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of the things you're doing are very cutting edge. Where do you see collection development going in terms of the future? I mean, do you think it's going more with the vendor selection?
Now, really, I want to emphasize it's vendor selection under our direction. It's not like we say, just go and select.
So it's not like Hawaii.
No, well, poor old Hawaii. There was so much with Hawaii. I don't even want to get into the ins and outs of Hawaii, but Hawaii indicated something. Selection is fun. It really is. I mean, to go and say, if I hand you $1,000 and say, go buy $1,000 worth of books or movies or music, you know, most of us would go, yippee, you know, let's go do that. It's a little more difficult to say, go out there and call. You know, go out there and take off of and look at your statistics and see how your customers are using it and say, you know, that thing that I really thought they liked because I love it. They don't give a hoot, you know, in this community, in this place. That is the difficult work. The future, I think, is going to be working much closer with our vendors, like we do with Overdrive. Like we do with our book vendors and our music vendors and our DVD vendors. Not only to select, but they're doing our processing, they're often doing our cataloging now, they're doing our linking. A lot of them are shipping things to us, so they're absolutely ready to go on the shelves. In fact, some major systems now are having all they're ordering however they order, but the books are being drop shipped to the branches. And a lot of the staff then there is picking up what used to happen centrally in a main library. So all of a sudden you're having to redeploy your troops and figure out how things are going to be done. Make sure that you get the information that you need so that you know you can pay your invoices and that kind of things. I think the future, if you're going to talk, I've been in libraries now 40 years. So if you're going to talk in another 40 years, we're going to have a lot less physical stuff on our shelves. But we're going to be offering more electronic products downloaded to your devices. You know, electronic books, electronic audio, movies, that kind of thing. The major stumbling block to a lot of that is pricing and protection. You know, in terms of copyright. That all has to be worked out. And that's why I'm saying I'm giving 40 years. But if you want to know the truth, I think 15 to 20 years.